Hey guys, mk11 edits here. Today we're going to be speaking about Kombat Pack 3 and which characters I think will make the cut. I just want to start off this video with a disclaimer that I don't have any inside knowledge at all. This is just purely speculation, so please take this with a grain of salt. So many of you guys may know this guy called The Finny on Twitter. He's this data miner who leaked the Kombat Pack 2 characters prior to their reveal. And recently he had pointed out that many of the mk11 voice actors were posting themselves in the studio working at the exact same time as each other. And yeah, this could totally be a coincidence, but I thought it would be cool to speak about what the Kombat Pack 3 could look like, so let's get into it. First up, we have Nitara. Now, Nitara is the only vampire character in the whole franchise. She hasn't appeared since, I believe, Armageddon, where she was fighting on the forces of evil. Now, the reason I believe Nitara will be back is because she was featured in the MK animated movie and is going to be featured in the upcoming live-action film. And I don't understand why NRS or Warner Bros would decide to put her in them without putting her in the actual game. I personally think it would be stupid not to, because it has boosted her fan base quite a lot, and lots of people are looking to see her in the game. There's a lot of people on Twitter, on Instagram, and YouTube comments and polls she's doing, and a lot of people want to see this character back, so I think it would be a dumb move financially on NRS's part to not include her. The only reason I could think of to not include her would be that her gameplay would be too similar to someone like Melina with the biting and Scarlet with the blood magic, but I think they could work around that and make her more unique. They could definitely focus on her wings and the flying attacks, like in Injustice 2 when Swamp Thing had that ability that can make him fly. She could have something similar to that. Or she could have similar gameplay to someone like Hot Girl from Injustice. You know, there's many routes they could take for her gameplay. And I really hope that if there is a Kombat Pack 3, that they do include her. Next up, we have Havik. Now, Havik, similarly to Nitara, last showed up in Armageddon, but I believe he was introduced in Deception. He's also very unique as he's the only character we see come from the Chaos Realm. You can even see him there alongside Melina in the mk11 ladder ending for Joker. But what makes Havik so unique is his fighting style. Basically what he does is he contorts his body in ways I can't even describe, so I'm just gonna put a video up the top what it looks like. And yes, Frost has a similar move to this in the game, but with Havik's gameplay, it could be fleshed out much more than just one singular move. And I know Frost has moves where she takes off her head and stuff, but I think that they're different enough characters to coexist in the same space. He also played a large role in the MKX comics where he worked alongside Reiko and Scarlet, which he both ultimately betrayed. Then we later find out that Quan Chi killed Havik. But as we all know, this is MK. Death doesn't really matter. It more matters about popularity of characters, so it doesn't dampen my hopes for him to be in Kombat Pack 3 at all. Next up, we have Sareena. And since she appeared in MKX as an NPC, her fan bases went absolutely crazy for her, and I can see why people want her so much. I mean, she has one of the best designs in the whole franchise, and the concept of her being a demon is probably the most interesting power we've got in MK. I believe she would play somewhat like MK9 Scarlet mixed with Raven from Injustice and Enchantress from Injustice 2. Just a really good mix and a very flashy character. And with the graphics of MK11, it'd be so cool to see which direction they take her demonic powers, so definitely keep an eye out for Sareena in the future. Next up, we have Takeda Takahashi. Now, I know a lot of people want him back, mainly because he was one of the combat kids that was excluded for seemingly no reason. I recently finished watching MKX and MK11 story modes back to back, and I remember thinking the entire time that it didn't make sense for Kung Jin and Takeda to be excluded. It was so weird because they had such an essential role in MKX just for them to disappear, and I knew I wanted to include at least one of them for my Kombat Pack 3 prediction. So I chose to go with Takeda as I feel like he's got a larger fan base than Kung Jin. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel like he has a larger fan base. And he had some of the best gameplay from MKX, hands down. So maybe if they just reimagine his gameplay from MKX and transfer it into MK11, that would be what his gameplay's like. But if they switched it up and gave us a total different thing, I'd be fine with that as well. And you know, MK11 is in dire need of some more setup characters, so if they focused on his Ronin variation from MKX, that would probably be the best for me. Next up, we have Smoke. I feel like this goes without saying, but Smoke is one of the most popular characters that's not been in a game for a while, and he is so heavily requested. Although yeah, he was a variation for Triborg in MKX, we haven't been able to see his personality or his character as an individual since MK9. And when he did show up as an NPC in MKX, all he did was get beat on, so I would like to see some form of redemption for Smoke's character, whether that be in an upcoming story mode or mk12. As for his gameplay, I'm sure he'll retain many of his classic moves, like what they did with Melina and Fujin. It's been a decade since he's been playable as his own character, so I'm sure they could think of many ways to reinvent his moveset. Last but not least, Ashrah. Now this is another 3D era character that we've not seen since Armageddon that I think deserves a chance. Now, I decided to include her because of her rivalry with Nitara. I think that would be an interesting plot point, especially for intro dialogue between the two. I think that would be very interesting. Apart from that, her voodoo magic powers are really interesting to me, and I think they would have great fatalities. Similarly to how Joker pulls out that Batman doll, I think she could have a doll of the opponent while fighting them that she could harm in specific places to do damage. I think that would be such a cool concept to see in a fighting game, and it's just such a unique fighting style. It would be so good to see that fully realised in the graphics that mk11 have, and the fatalities would be so good. She could have the doll as a gear piece, and depending on which character you're up against, it could have your loadout for that character as the design on the voodoo doll. And I just think that's just such a cool concept. Well, that's it. That's my 6 picks for Kombat Pack 3. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and make sure to tell me who you would choose for Kombat Pack 3.